Hi, this is my follow-up video on the Centripetal Farce of Newton's other fake force. Now, I'll start out here with this demonstration. The mainstream science would tell this guy that he got it wrong. It's not centrifugal force. Oh, it doesn't exist, they say. But let's just see what he's showing us. I bet you can guess what it's going to show, right? It's going to show what it said, a parabolic curve in the water. So he's spinning up the water. And we can see it forms a nice parabolic curve there. Yeah, there we go. Some slow motion now. And we can see what's happening here. What we can observe with our eyes, so that we can call that, or this factual, is that the mass of the water is moving to the outside of the circular path. That's rather evident in what is happening in the center. There's an evacuation of the water. It's all going to the outsides, which, to a commoner, you would think was due to the centrifugal force pulling outward on the mass, But no, it's this mass resisting a change in direction that causes it to go outside, not an outside. It's a center-seeking force. It's pulling the mass inward, but because it resists a change in direction, we feel it pulling outward. That is Newton's assertion about his second fake force, centripetal force. So that's all I really wanted to show in here, is we can clearly see that's going on. That's a thing. So, let's see. And of course, it comes up on the wrong screen. 1 second here. Okay. And my laggy, slow computer. Thank you. There we go. Okay, there's the one I wanted. Let me bring this over here. Now this will come into play a little bit here in a minute. On a globe, every line of latitude has a different angle relative to the line of axis. If this is the line of axis, these are the different angles. Pretty self-evident. On a globe, up is away from its center of mass, down towards it. There is no level, as every point on the surface is subject to curvature. So up is whichever way up is. Pretty obvious too. Okay, this is why Newton had to come up with the centripetal force and call it a center-seeking force. Because prior to that, it was centrifugal force was believed to be real, and that it pulled outward. But Newton, in all of his brilliance, right? And centrifugal force, if you applied it to a turning globe for his solar system model, or his Earth model, the planet, this is what you would find. Gravity always pulls towards the center, yet the centrifugal force is always perpendicular to the axis. It only pulls sideways. We've all been on merry-go-round before. We know it only pulls you sideways. It doesn't pull you up or down. It only pulls sideways. And the farther away you are from the center, the greater the strength that it pulls you sideways. And if you're right on the center rotating, it doesn't pull you at all. So you can see here, if you were balancing anything straight up and down, would be impossible, except for at the equator, because they are opposed to each other evenly there. Whereas over here, you try to build something, it's going to be pulled at an angle relative to its, to the axis. And centrifugal force is weakest near the pole of the axis, but it's unrestricted, meaning nothing is opposing it. And no matter how weak centrifugal force is calculated to be, with nothing to oppose it, water could not remain at the poles. I figured this out. Newton definitely knew it. And here's his deal. Okay, change this up a little bit here. Get over there. The Centripetal Farce. Gravity theory states that a force exists between all bodies of mass pulling towards each's center. Earth's pull holding it together and us on its surface. As a sphere exhibits curvature at all points, there is no objective level. Up and down are equal to, towards, or away from its center. We're all familiar with the basics of Newton's gravitational theory. However, Newton himself knew that centrifugal force produced by rotation or moving in a curved path, a force well known to all, opposed his theory, as gravity was the weak force. I might got a little ahead of myself before they come up with the weak force and strong force ideas, but gravity is the weak force, and it's fixed, while centrifugal force increases with radius from axis. The farther away from center, the harder it pulls, because you're moving in a larger path. Newton knew gravity couldn't stand alone, but as the world's preeminent scientist and head of the Royal Society, he was in a position to rewrite physics. Seizing upon an idea first proposed by Huygens, he added another force to physics to support his gravity theory and named it centripetal force, a force that he said pulled inward on mass moving on a curved path, and that the apparent outward pull of centrifugal force was due to resistance of mass in motion to change in direction, as per his first laws of motion, and that centrifugal force was not real. Now, with centripetal force redefined as an inward pulling force, took the force of centrifugal and said, no, it's not pulling out, it's pulling in, and it's the resistance to changing direction that makes it seem like it's pulling out. Yeah, sure. So with that, he, in one fell swoop, he did away with the centrifugal force, took its force and applied it as an inward pull, and voila, he had the extra energy needed to balance his gravity calculations. However, like gravity, centripetal's inward pull can't be felt. We feel an outward pull, but only from resistance to changing direction, from moving along a curved path. So my question, is centripetal force the cause or the effect of moving in a curved path? How is a rotating mass in a body in motion on a curved path subject to the same force when fundamentally different motions? And centripetal can't keep a moving body in a curved path when it arises from a body moving in a curved path. Hey, did it jump too on me? Alright, what do hurricanes, tornadoes, and whirlpools have in common? They're all hollow at the center, due to its mass moving away from center, leaving an empty low-pressure core. Only after it dissipates does the barometric reading at a hurricane center increase. As long as it rotates, its mass moves to the periphery. And see, in the hurricane, let's go to this one. Hurricane, it's got a hole in the middle. All the weighty mass of the water in clouds is out here because it's being slung outward, as we all know. I mean, we don't all believe that, but we all know this to be true by experience. Tornadoes, the same deal. Does a tornado throw Dorothy's house to the center? No, it throws it outward. Whirlpool. There's a whole lot of mass right here, and guess where that mass is not? It's not in the middle. It's out here, and it's creating a void in the middle because the mass is moving away from the center, not towards it. Now here's one of the experiments that they try to use to show centripetal force, which I will call Newton's other fraudulent force. They spin this apparatus with these buoys attached to the bottom inside the water, and as they spin faster, the buoys lean towards the center. But the buoys float. The buoys moves towards the center due to buoyancy. The increasing pressure at the perimeter of the rotation due to centrifugal force causes it to move inward, but only because it's tethered to the bottom. If these tethers weren't there on the bottom and these were just floating on this little bit of surface water here, they also would move to the outside because they're subject to centrifugal force, just like the water is. That's why the water's moving to the outside. These float, they're trying to float to the inside because the pressure's increasing at the outside. Is that not obvious? Centripetal force is fake. Now, here's one too. They say because it's on a tangential, the tangential path. When you were to release a ball, say you're spinning a ball on a string and you released it, it flies off tangential, showing that it's not trying to stay in the rotation, and that so if centripetal is a center-seeking force, and we release the tension, which releases the centripetal force acting through the string on a ball, and it flies off tangential, guess what? It still flies outward. Please show me evidence of a centripetal or center-seeking force. Because according to my calculations, the tangential path is still away from center. Centripetal force was coined by Isaac Newton to aid his failing theory of gravity by nullifying centrifugal force and claiming it actually is resistance to changing direction mistaken for an outward pull. Flying away at a tangent in no way proves a center-seeking force. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. And any way you slice it, that is still away from there. So if it flies off on a tangential path, it's still moving away. This is part of my cosmology thing here, but this is not really applied right now. So yeah, so there you go. A tangential path is still away from center. It in no way shows centripetal force to be real. All of the examples they give are just, they're just tricky little ways of trying to trick people into thinking that, oh yeah, look, the buoys are pulling themselves to the middle from the centripetal. Oh no, they're trying to float. They're trying to float toward the middle because the mass is increasing at the outside here and the density is increasing, and these float on top of the water, not below the water. And it's also a fraud because you cut those strings and these will float to the top and they'll go to the outside too. I don't have to set up that experiment to show everybody. I'm sure you know it's true. So yeah, Newton's a fraud. I guess they taxed him, because he's such a genius. And what is he really a genius for? What, he noticed that if something's moving, it'll tend to stay moving unless something else makes it stop? And then he noticed that, well, if something wasn't moving, it didn't move unless something else force moved upon it and caused it to move? Like nobody had ever noticed that before? All Newton did was, all he's credited with is putting it down on paper for scientific purposes, so we could have a rule about it as a basis to form the science on, which is good. I'll grant him that. It was smart of him to think to write those things down. But he is completely off his rocker with gravity or the centripetal force. The centripetal force is what backs the gravity. Gravity is a fraud. I mean, there's ample evidences that there's no gravity acting on the Earth. There's no gravity acting on water from the moon. The moon doesn't have gravity acting on. There's probably magnetism from the moon, but there's no gravity. There's no such thing. And when I learned that centrifugal wasn't no longer a real thing, and that now, according to science, it's a center-seeking force, I had to address that, because clearly the tangential path is away from center, and that in no way shows a center-seeking force. Okay, I'm going to make it short and sweet. That's all I got for this. Anything else comes up about the subject, I'll address it later. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.